I got this Craftsman table saw circa 1980s. The deck is pretty sturdy, the motor was pretty powerful. But the more I dig into it, the more it's looking like a piece of crap. Here's the legs over here. They're flimsy sheet metal garbage. The motor didn't want to start. You had to help it. It was smoking. I thought the motor was fried. Took it apart. The motor has this proprietary casing. One day I'll learn how to talk. And it actually swings off of these points to go up and down. And then there's a cradle over here that tilts it to 45 and back. Long story short, the motor is kind of a piece of crap. Not impressive at all. But to its credit, I don't think the motor was the problem. I did take it apart, I did clean it, I did put new bearings in it. Hey guys, over the years I have switched cell phones and transferred data, and sometimes it worked, sometimes it didn't. I lost a lot of footage from this project. So the best I can do without taking apart a perfectly functional motor is show you this blown up view of the motor and tell you what I did. So I pulled the motor apart, took the casing apart by removing these bolts. Then I used a press, like a gear puller type device, to pull off the bearings. If you look, that says number 5. That E-clip is number 6. Another E-clip, number 6. Another bearing, number 5. If you dig through Craftsman's website and their microfiche, if you can find, I don't know if there's any Sears still in existence, they were really good about parts. Even if they didn't make them anymore, you could get like the specs and the part number, and you could cross-reference that with things that are made today. But I just popped off the bearing, measured the shaft, measured the outer dimension of the bearing and the width, and found new bearings that matched by some random Chinese company. This back bearing I actually had to cut with a angle grinder until I was almost through, and then I split it with a chisel so I wouldn't damage the shaft on the motor. It was rusty, which is why it didn't want to come off, so then I polished it with some emery cloth, and when I put it back together, the new bearing went on snug, but not as tight as the one that I replaced. So here's all the parts and how it goes back together, and how it comes apart. And yeah, I put new bearings in there, and at first I wasn't sure if I was doing it for no reason, but when all was said and done, the saw has 0 vibration now. 0. And it vibrated really badly before. So I did absolutely positively need those new bearings, and it made a world of difference. Here's one of them. The other one I had to destroy it to get it off. Here's the electronics. There is a gravity operated relay that the motor uses this to get started. It was packed full of sawdust. I think that was the only problem. But now wires have been popped apart, put back together in the wrong space. I asked for help and it turned into a big old mess. Parts have been lost. My cranks were breaking and falling apart, so I had gotten an idea to fix those. I bought some pulleys, and I think what I'm going to do is I'll take these pulleys, I'm going to drill them and put the crank handles on them, and I'll make new cranks. Got these off of Amazon. I think they were like 11 bucks each. Considerably cheaper than trying to find these replacement plastic garbage ones. This was the better one, and it's got a big crack in it. I had to have a hose clamp on it for the last 5-10 years to keep it from splitting completely apart. Garbage. I'm going to do my best to record reassembling this saw, and hopefully I have enough pictures and videos of me taking it apart to put it together and put together a video that makes some kind of sense. So first things first, let's get this jumbled mess put together properly. So I was able to find this wiring diagram online. Hopefully after I put this back together, that'll get us up and running. I was also thinking that if worse comes to worse, I may take this motor apart, cut off the windings, and grind away at some of this casing, and I'll put a pulley on this shaft. Maybe I'll even extend the end of the shaft to stick out further. I'll weld something on there, spin it in the lathe, and put a pulley on it out here. And then I'm going to run a pulley to an external motor, like an industrial table saw should be built, so that in the future I can replace the other motor if it burns up. I can replace these bearings if they go bad, and there's no reason why this saw couldn't run forever. Ironically, when I thought the motor was fried, I bought an industrial saw off of Facebook Marketplace for 50 bucks. But it doesn't have all the accessories that I have for this table saw. So I guess I'm semi-invested in both of them. Okay, I followed the wiring diagram, plugged it in. This will be the first time this motor has run since reassembling it with the new bearings, if it runs. Let's find out. Hand on switch. Hey! Alright. I guess it's time for a reassembly. So, I really hate this about this saw, but what are you going to do? The blade rides right on the shaft of the motor. So this looks like a nut, but it has no threads. This actually slides over the threads down onto that shoulder. You line up the hole in here with the hole in there, and then this roll pin traps it on there. And then you put the washer and the blade and another washer and then the nut. You can stack dado blades on there if you want to. And that's what holds the blade on the shaft. Okay, that's back on. So after some trial and error, I was able to figure it out. And man, what a piece of crap. This is just a little bit heavier than sheet metal. There's a little finger and a set screw that keep the motor from being able to move. I jammed some washers and some rubber washers in there to try to cut down on some of the vibration. There is a rubber washer here. This is the bar that goes to the front of the machine. You turn a crank and it raises and lowers the motor. Here's some sheet metal brackets with a piece of stamped steel with some threads in it that holds the cradle assembly to the deck. Sorry, that's my nephew. Somehow whenever I absolutely positively need to record right now, he knows to come over and ride. It's uncanny the way he psychically knows when to start that bike and hit the woods. Anyway, so I'm bolting the motor down. I'm gonna grease the screws that adjust it up and down. There's another setup that adjusts the tilt that's built into the box itself, and that is a project in and of itself. We'll tackle that next. I finished recording, so now he's shutting the bike off. I swear to God. It really is uncanny. Just to give you a little heads up, there is this shaft that comes out the back that is connected to the cradle. That is actually where the safety gear goes. The guard and whatnot attaches onto this, and I guess that way it stays in line with the blade, and as the blade tilts, the guard tilts to stay in line with the blade. This goes onto the shaft like so, and the guard attaches with some wing nuts, but we'll worry about that later. Right now I'm just gonna secure this. We'll put the box back on. Also, where the box and the deck mate, there are these bolts with some rubber grommets. I'm going to see about, some of them are in pretty bad shape. I might just put some rubber washers on there to absorb some of the vibration and put it back together. While I have the box off and everything's upside down, I'm going to hit this with, I was going to use some white lithium grease, but I've got this silicone lube, and can you believe it? Can you believe it? There goes the dirt bike. Can you believe it? Anyway, I didn't hear a peep. I said, oh, I can record right now. This was handy. I don't know that I've used it before. I want to give it a shot here. Hopefully it does a good job. We'll find out. But all these moving parts, I want to hit them with something that's going to stick around, not evaporate like WD-40. So I'm going to get all the moving parts. That is part of the cradle where it rocks. So I'll flip this up and get it from the underside. Gonna have to put you down to do that. I'm still too dumb to use my tripod, but you get the idea. You don't need to watch me spray lube on things. If you want that, I could recommend some better sites or channels. Just saying. What I've decided I'm going to do is I'm going to put a washer first, and then this is an O-ring for a garden hose, which I happen to have a bunch of these laying around. And then this will go over the threaded tower on the table saw deck, but under the metal box. And then this deteriorated rubber grommet won't have to do half as much work as it used to have to do, but it'll be coming through from the bottom side and going through all that stuff, and we'll be rubber mounted once more. So the box is bolted down, got rubber grommets on it. I attached a ground wire to the deck. There's another ground wire I didn't show you earlier, but it connects the motor and the cradle to the deck. There is the threaded rod built into the box that changes the angle. As you tighten or loosen that, it rocks the cradle up to 45 degrees. There's the front. That's where the box goes with the capacitor, the safety switch, the reset, the relay. It's got a little ground clip that keeps the ground flowing onto this front cover. I guess that's going on next. And I made a little modification over here. So this stuff is all embedded in the box. There's these strain relief keepers. Then there's the stake-ons that are clipped onto everything. I guess you could take it all apart to get the cord in and out. There was a the exact same stress reliever, gripper, whatever you want to call it, to keep the wire embedded in the box, was on this cover here. And you couldn't take the damn thing apart. I didn't understand why this cover was removable, but the cord was basically permanently attached. In trying to get that cover off, I broke it, the clamp rather. So I decided instead to cut this groove in here so that I could slip it off of the wire. And I took a regular wire clamp and I ground a chunk of it out. Basically, with that chunk missing, you take this part off, clamp it onto the wire, and then you can screw this on. Got the cover on. around the cord, obviously. And I put this together using the slot and the screws to take it apart. A little snug, but it's a good fit. And I took a nut and some cutting pliers and I cut a chunk out. Let's get that on the other side. Okay, so that worked out good. That is installed. I'm going to leave this side loose until it's finally assembled. I guess I could snug it up a little more than that, but I don't want it so tight that it keeps me from being able to... I don't want it to keep me from assembling the front panel, so I'll leave it loose enough that the wire can move until everything is finally completed. So I had to slip this box sideways through the hole and then put it back to normal and put it into place and put the screws in, which was challenging, especially with the guts spilling out. Somebody was helping me out, or trying to help me anyway, when I thought my motor was frying. And long story short, he took all this stuff out and lost my hardware on me, which just made things tricky to get it back together. But I persevered. I drilled some holes and put a zip tie through there, drilled some holes and put a zip tie through there. Found some wood screws that kind of sort of worked for this. Gonna have to try to find some self-tappers for that. And I'm gonna try and get this cover back on. I might put some weather stripping around here before I put the cover on, because my problem was this relay has a moving part right there. This box was completely packed with sawdust to the point where this switch didn't even want to flip on and off. So if I can keep the sawdust out, I might be able to keep the problems to a minimum. Also, I guess where I drilled the holes, I'll put a dab of silicone or caulk or something and seal that up. So, yeah, I think I'm at a standstill until I have some weather stripping. This table saw has been darkening my workbench for far too long. It is time to at least put the majority of it back together and get it out of my way. I have projects to work on that aren't getting done because of this, so I am back on it. I want to try to make this so that it won't fill up with sawdust again easily, and I think I'm going to do that by cutting some of this weather stripping and putting it around the outer edge of this box before I put this cover on over it. The dust probably got in through the switch here. But as long as I don't block this contact, which is gravity operated, from being able to drop and then lift, I should be okay. There's also this reset button that, I don't know. Well, stick with me and we'll see what happens. So I took a razor blade and I cut some weather stripping into some thin strips. And I took some duct tape and folded it and rolled it so it's sticky side out like two-faced tape. And I'm just going to go around the perimeter with this. Obviously, it would have been quicker and easier to go to the store and get the self-adhesive strip, but I'm just trying to use what I got in here and get done. So the tape is on. I'm going to stick the weather stripping to it and trim it to fit. That is done. It is time to put this cover back on. So I've decided that every bolt is going to get one of these rubber washers, which is what you would use in your garden hose to keep it from leaking. It's what goes into the female side that screws onto the spigot or the hose bib to not leak. And it falls out and you never saw it fall out, and then you wonder why your hose leaks all over the place when you turn it on next time you hook it up. So I think I got a whole batch of these for like $4 or $5. And what I'm going to do is put the bolt in from the table saw part. I'm going to have the bolt first, and then a large washer. That's going to come down through the table saw. Every time I record, the dirt bikes and the quads go by. Then this will go through the table saw. The rubber washer will go between the table saw and the legs. And then I will put the lock washer and the nut on. And that should keep it from rattling loose and also cut down on how much vibration goes down into the floor. Let's test my theory and see if I'm right. All right, now comes the fun part. Whoever designed this obviously wasn't worried about carrying it. Alright, so I got the bolts in the back, and now I'm just putting everything together up here in the front. And there goes the rubber washer on that bolt. And I thought they were leaving, so I started the camera up again. Here goes the rubber washer for the back bolt. And now I'll take out that block, drop it down, put the lock washers and the nuts on. One more quick repair while we're here. Ta-da! I forgot to put the attachment for the guard back on. There's this little collar, which is probably in the wrong place. And then that slides on like so. There's like a track in there. These bolts have square nuts that fit into that track. So you slip that on. And then you can see there's slots here where this would plop down and slide forward in between this plate and this plate, snugged up by those wing nuts. But at any rate, we're going to put these on, center this up, and I'm going to make this snug and get it adjusted so that it's vertical like the blade is. Okay, I eyeballed it as I tightened it, and I think this actually has a bend to it, which I'm gonna have to take it off and pound it straight before I can get this perfect, but that's pretty darn close. Good enough for now. The factory cranks for my table saw are plastic, and this one's got a split. This one is completely missing a chunk. So I popped the handles off, which were these, held on by these. Bought some pulleys that were around the same size, drilled holes in them. I'm going to put these handles on these pulleys, and put these pulleys where the cranks go, essentially making new cranks for about $4 a piece, instead of God only knows what they would have cost to have them machined or try to find replacements. Major luck out, I have a Allen driver that fits here. I may have to make longer set screws, but before we jump to conclusions, let me just confirm that. So step one is going to be to, step one was actually I took a drift pin and pushed this backward until this pin popped out and knocked the cover off of here. Here's the cover, got that out of the way. Then I'm going to use this as a drift pin and knock that pin all the way in until it bottoms out. to give this a little spin so it spins freely. And now it's time to get these retaining clips on. I'll show you how I do that. So the easiest way I have found to put these clips on, get them started, I've got my pin in the handle. You find a socket that fits over the pin but does not fit over the clip. And give it a couple taps. Now I don't want it sloppy, but I do want it to spin free. And that's what I got. My advice to you is to tap it on a little bit, stop, test it, tap it on a little more, stop, test it. If you go too far, you might just be able to work it free, but it's easier to just not go too far in the first place. So, pin in. Clip on. Get it started as deep as you can. You could probably just kind of push it on. Yep. You don't even have to tap it. That spins kind of free. It's going to free up the more I use it. And there you go. I just made 2 cranks. Let's go install them. Alright, they're on. Let's see how they work before I put the caps on them. I wish they were a little bigger. This handle does need to get lubricated or free up a little bit more. Or the pulley could have been bigger. But it was a little tricky finding pulleys that were the right shaft size and close to being the same size as the handles, the right thickness, all that good stuff. So it wouldn't hurt to put a little bit of spray grease on the screw that this is turning. This one's for the angle. That works good. That works really good. All right, so once these are kind of lubed, see, this one's a little freer. This one I went a little, it's getting better. And like I said, a little lube in here before I put the cap on. A little lube grease in there, some lithium grease. This turns a threaded rod that adjusts the blade height. This turns a threaded rod that adjusts the angle of the dangle. So I think the lube, and we'll be good. Alright, I sprayed some white lithium grease. This is smoothing out nicely. This has improved greatly. And honestly, it's a bit of a double-edged sword because if you lube it up, sawdust sticks to it. Of course, the sawdust doesn't help it turn. And also, if it spins too freely, the vibration of the machine running used to actually make this creep. But with the new bearings, I don't have any vibration. And I don't think it'll be a problem. I actually used to have to hang this weight. I was in the middle of cutting, and I said, this'll fix it. 20 years later, I haven't come up with anything better. What you just saw was about, I don't know, probably 5 to 10 years in the making. I've been using the saw, but I had these for years before I just did what I just did. The set screws were long enough, so that worked out good. And yeah, I got to put this little dial back on here that indicates the angle. I took it off so it wouldn't get mangled while I rebuilt this. But yeah, she's working great. I was turning the crank with an adjustable wrench. And now I can finally turn it under its own power. And it works nice too, because just like the original, you can use the crank to get near where you want and then just kind of turn it to fine tune it like a dial. Oh, I had to take the crank back off to put this indicator pointer back on, but I think I got it zeroed in. I usually double check with a square anyway, so yeah. So there's the screw way back in there. That's back on. Let me reinstall the crank. Okay, crank's reinstalled. Covers are back on the cranks. Now it's done. I'm actually in the process of using the saw and said enough is enough, let me put these cranks on. And it has been performing beautifully. It's like a brand new tool. So there you have it. Thanks for watching. Good luck with your project.